welcome. So I've decided to redo my refined storage video. I did one earlier today and I just wasn't happy with it. I felt like I rushed through a bit. So I'm going to try to go a little bit slower and go into as much detail as I can with refined storage. So, what is refined storage? Well, if you've watched any of my other videos, you've seen me accessing this thing here that has a lot of items in it. Basically, refined storage is going to be your end-all be-all storage system. You can see I can just scroll through and there's page upon page upon page of item. So that's why I enjoy refined storage, because you can just keep adding more storage and all have it in one central location. And you can see here I've got this little item here. If I click it, you can even set things up so you can access it at a remote location. So let's get started with refined storage. So now, as with all things, we're going to type in @refined storage. Oops, there we go. And we're going to bring up everything that is part of the refined storage mod. Now the first item you want to start with here is a controller. This controller requires silicon, quartz enriched iron, which is why I did my little video on how to get quartz. There is, of course, some quartz powder that comes from, I believe, sand, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So here we go, quartz enriched iron dust. That can be smelted too to make quartz enriched iron. Or if we come in here and we have another look, we can see here you can take 1 nether quartz and 3 iron and start making yourself some quartz enriched iron. You can also use essences too, but that's for something later on. We aren't going to talk about that today. So we're going to go ahead and take a look here. 3 silicon, 1 diamond, 4 quartz enriched iron, and 1 machine casing, which is just more quartz enriched iron. So basically tons and tons of quartz enriched iron. Alright, so now that we've got our little controller, we're going to find a nice spot for our computer. Now I like lots and lots of space for it, because that leaves you room to expand. So I'm going to take and I'm going to put it, I'm going to say right about here. Now if you click on this box, you see this box here does absolutely nothing for you. You're going to have to take it a few steps further in order to figure out how to use it as a storage system. So now, in order for you to progress any further, you're going to have to make a thing over here. See if we can find it. There it is, called a solderer. And of course this requires, yet again, more quartz enriched iron and a sticky piston. 2 sticky pistons, excuse me. So once you get that made, we're going to pull it up here, because I already have one made. If you read the description on it, it says it needs to be connected with a controller by placing it adjacent to or connected with cables. You don't actually have to be that fancy. Most of these parts say it has to be right next to it, connected to it like that, or with cables. The connected to doesn't mean directly adjacent. It means it can be part of a giant block complex that has at least 1 block touching your controller. And I'll give you an example of that, because that's not a great description without showing you visually. So we come in here to my base and you can see here's my controller and over here is my solderer. It works just fine, but it is technically connected because all of these bits here in between the controller and the solderer are refined storage bits, and they all count as part of this giant, I like to call it computer storage, but it is technically refined storage system. So now we're going to go ahead and head back over there and see what else we need. So now this thing that you've been seeing me access, where I'm crafting things and I'm getting all the kind of items out of here, this thing right here is a crafting grid. Now you can have a grid and access all of your items too. However, with the grid, you don't get the option to craft like you do here. So basically, it looks a lot like this screen, except it's just no crafting area. So take that out and you just see all your items. Now, if you want to see more items, there's ways to change your display. I believe it's this one here. No, there's a way to make it bigger. See, I'm already screwing up. Okay, well, there's a way to make it bigger. I'm not completely familiar with that. Evidently, I thought I was, but it doesn't seem to be working for me. But there's also ways to sort, so ascending, descending via alphabetical. You can also do by item ID, and you can do by number and quality. I'm lazy. I just tend to leave it on number and quality. I don't know why. I've gotten used to it, but you can sort it however you like. So let's go ahead and see what it requires to make a crafting grid. So a crafting grid is, of course, going to require a grid and one of these little guys. Okay. And then when we come into a regular grid, we see more of these guys. So these processors, there's 3 processors and 2 cores. So we've got a basic processor, which is a printed basic processor. Basically, that's iron and a furnace. And then in your solderer, you also add redstone and these printed silicon, which is basically silicon and a furnace. Then next we have our improved processors, and that is a printed improved processor, gold and a furnace, and redstone, and another one of our basic printed, or excuse me, our printed silicons. Then the last one we have is the advanced processor, and it's diamond, redstone, and silicon. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a couple of furnaces, and we're going to get smelting. So let's go ahead and get some furnaces ready. Actually, for saving time, I'm not going to make some. I'm actually going to head back to my main base, and we're just going to smelt a few things here. So let's head on back. And we're going to grab some diamond. We're going to grab some iron. Some gold. And obviously you aren't going to have the pretty boxes, or pretty storage grid like I have. That's what we're working on making. But whatever box you have it in, just go ahead and grab it. And there's our silicon. And I'm actually going to turn this off here. And go ahead and get crafting on some of these bits. Oops, I forgot it split automatically there, so let's go ahead and fix that. Make sure we've got everything going just the way it's supposed to. Yeah. So we're making a good number of these guys here. So let's just go ahead and skip forward to the part where we actually make our processors, different ones that we need. So I'm curious to see how many I have of each. You can see I have quite a few in here. But I'm going to steal this little guy here just to show you, because it's very much the same for all of these different processors here. So let's go ahead and grab ourselves a bit of redstone. Grab one, and we'll come over to the solderer and get cracking. And we're just going to do it to this one just because I got everything here that I need. So you can just shift click them, it'll put them in the right order. Boom, advanced processor. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in here, and we're going to look again at what we need for our grid. So if you see here, there's also two different types of cores that need to be there that aren't our improved, advanced, and basic processor, and that's a construction core and a deconstruction core. And these are pretty easy to make. They're just one of the basic printed processors, which is the iron-based one. And a piece of nether quartz will give you a deconstruction core. And then if we come over here and we take a look, a construction core is a basic processor and some glowstone dust. And you'll be needing quite a few of these while you're setting up your computer. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab a grid that I'd made earlier. Here we go. And I'm going to go ahead and head back. So remember, crafting the grid was these processors, some more enriched quartz, and another metal casing. And then in order to go up to the crafting grid, the one that has the crafting panel, it's an advanced processor, a grid, and a crafting table. Easy peasy. So let's go ahead and head back to our secret town. And we're going to go ahead and place... We're going to go ahead and place this on top. Now you see it's flashing red, nothing's happening. Might be a little bit of power left in it from when I was playing around with it earlier. But this guy needs to be powered. Now the cool part is you don't need to power the individual parts. All you need powered is your core here. So if you have a good power network, hook it on up. I'm using this right here, flux point. I could have run power cables straight from my reactor into it. In fact, that's what I had at my main base for the longest time. So now let's see. Let's see if I can put an item in. No, I can't. And that's because the next thing you're going to need is a disk storage drive. Now these are very, very important. So let me go ahead and pull that up in both places because I already have one crafted. So let's see here. This is your disk drive. So you can see here in the picture it's got 8 slots on it. Requires advanced processors and, yes, of course, more quartz enriched iron. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my disk drive here. And I'm going to place it beside my computer. Or my controller. Now you can see when I click on the controller, it'll tell you everything that's connected to it. And if I click on this, you can see how many items total I can store. Right now, I'm at 0 of 0 items. So I still can't store anything in it. What I'm going to have to do next is start making some storage disks. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in @refined storage again to bring up all of our little things here that we need. So these are our storage disks. Your most basic one is a 1K storage, but if you're living out of crates, you're going to know this is actually a pretty awesome thing, so you're going to want to start making them. Our highest one is 64. Now you can have all 8 of those slots filled up with 64 items. Item storage disks. So I think you go up to 512,000, I think, if you're doing items only. You'll see down here there's some more storage disks. These are fluid storage disks. So you can actually store fluids inside of your computer too, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But now, to go ahead and get started with these storage disks, you're going to need these parts right here, which are going to be a bit more silicon, bit more enriched quartz iron, glass, and that'll make you one of these, the 1K storage bits right here, excuse me. And then in order to make the 4K, you need 3 of the 1Ks. To make the 16K, you need 3 of the 4Ks. And then to make the 64K, you need 3 of the 16Ks. So it's kind of a bit of a pain in the butt to go all the way up to 64-bit, but it's not too bad for me at the moment because I have some already made. But yeah, so you're going to probably start with some 1Ks, and that's okay. So excuse me 1 second while I cough. There we go. So now we're going to go ahead and hook this up. I'm going to put these two empty ones in here. And now you can see I have 128K of storage in my system. So you saw how I couldn't put that gem in there earlier? Now I can put it in. Not a problem. So we've got lots of stuff to start working with. So now, you've got your basics here. I'm going to talk about one more piece. I'm just going to pull it up here in this computer, and that is a disk manipulator. So say you start off with the 1K storage disks, and then you upgrade yourself to 4K, and then all the way up to 16K. But you have all of these little disks that you want to get the stuff off of because you want to fill your disk drive with, you know, the higher ones. So you can see how this one has 127 items on it, and I made something called a disk manipulator. So just walk back over. Oh, you know what? I can even show you right here. There we go. Let's pull up disk manipulator right here. You can see it needs a couple of storage housings, a destruction core, construction core, and more refined quartz. Now let me show you what it does. So let's open this up and let's take a look here. I have 127 items on this storage disk. If we look in here, these two are empty. And in here, you can see we have no items. So let's go ahead and place this in here. You can see it's pulling items out of this disk. And where are they going? They're going onto these disks. And when I click on this, I can see everything that's stored in here. So it's going to empty out. Once it hits 0, it's going to pop into this out slot, and then I know it's empty and I can either tuck it in storage or use it, whatever I like. So that's a very important thing, I think, because you will probably be starting with the lower level ones and then working your way up. So let's see, what else should we talk about? I think we need to talk about a few of the other systems involved with refined storage that I think are highly underutilized. So let's go ahead and we're going to look at the network, setting up a network for yourself. So you can see here, this is hooked into my main computer system here. But how did I do that? Well, that's easy. So we go ahead and we type in network, or you can look through refined storage and you're going to need to find 3 things. A network transmitter, a network receiver, and a network card. Now, I happen to have all of those, I believe, so let me just double check for my network card. It might be missing. I think we'll just make a new one. That should be alright. Network, here we go. So I'm going to place this network card, and then we got a network transmitter. Oh, I'm missing some machine casings. I like making a few extras of these. So let's make our network transmitter. Make a network receiver. And then we've got basically our basic setup. So now say you want to do like I've done here and set up something that you can access your computer from remotely, no matter how far away it is. What you would do is put your transmitter. It's always the transmitter at the computer that you want stuff to come out of. So you just take your transmitter, and you can stick it anywhere here. And you can see it's lit up. And then you take your receiver at wherever you want to transmit. So like over here, you can see I've got a receiver here. And then for this, I put a crafting grid on top of it so that I can look at all the items I have in my main storage system and do what I need to. So this is a crafting grid on top of a receiver. But we're not done here, because let me show you what I'm going to do. So we have our transmitter down, and now we're going to take our network receiver. And we're going to place it down. You can see how the one over there is glowing, and you can see how this one has no glow to it. It is not lit up. That means it is not connected to our computer, or excuse me, our refined storage system. So what we have to do is take this network card here, put in a quick slot, right click on this. You can see it didn't have any coordinates before, now it does. And we come over here to our network transmitter and we place it inside. Now, this is going to be pretty confusing once you get a lot of these network transmitters hooked into your computer, because this here gives me coordinates. It doesn't say what it is though. So let me take you back to my main base and I'll show you what I mean. So let's go on over. So you can see I have all of these, ooh, lag, there we go. I have all of these network transmitters in the floor and underneath this thing. So you can see here I put some glass in. You can see they're actually connected to this big block just like everything else is. And they're running all throughout here. And I made the mistake on a lot of these of not labeling what on earth they were. And I hit a point where I was just like, I have no idea. I had to move, a receiver, or it glitched and it stopped working, and I had to go pull it out and reconnect it, and I didn't know which was which. So I realized all I got to do is come to an anvil, place it on the anvil, and change the name. So I'm going to rename this one to Town Sand, because this is going to be hooked into our sandbox. Or our sand processing, I should say. So let me go ahead and head back. There we go. Make sure I'm clicking it correctly. So now I'm going to go ahead and put it back in here. Let me get a little bit of light though. That's going to bother me. That's not properly lit. Right click on that, put its network card in there, and you can see it's still named. So this is really helpful. Now, if you name it before you right-click on the receiver, you're going to have a bad time, because once it's right-clicked, it's going to reset the name. I've tried that a few times and found myself confused. Now, you can see I put this receiver here, but I'm not putting a crafting grid on it. I don't intend to use it like I have this guy over here. So what am I going to use it for? Well, let me show you. You can see this box is full of all the stuff I'm processing here. I've got, a bunch of iron and aluminum and yellorium, and I've got gold and iron and nickel. All kinds of good stuff. But I want that in my computer, and I'm incredibly lazy. I don't want to walk that stuff over there. So what do? Well, we need to start back at Refined Storage. And let's take a look at a few things right over here. So first off, we have our cable. This is basically going to be your transfer pipe. If you use Ender.io for your transferring, or if you use the basic transfer pipes, this is going to be essentially the same thing. So you can see what you need to make them. You need some quite clear glass. I think you can use regular glass though. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Yep, regular glass works, whatever kind of glass you want. Some more, of course, quartz enriched iron, and some redstone to make yourself some cables. Now, you're also going to want some of these things here too. Importers and exporters. You're going to be using these a lot. And which one you use, importer or exporter? Sorry, I was clicking on the wrong thing there. Importer or exporter depends on what you're going to do. So it's a little confusing because I thought, okay, export. I'm exporting the stuff out of this box into my computer. I want to put an exporter on there. No, it's the other way. You have to think of it like this. Am I importing something to my main computer? Am I taking something and putting it into the computer? Or am I exporting, moving something out of my main computer? Always use that as your point of reference. So we've got a few of these already made, I believe. Let me double check. No, not that many. So let's go ahead and search Porter. Let's make a few more of these, because I am always using these things. There we go. Just get a couple of these guys. And I'm going to show you how to start utilizing these things. So the interesting thing about the refined storage system is these cables, if you try to place them on this box here, let me step back here, shift click, you can see it's not actually connecting to the box. But if I were to place it on this thing here, which is part of the refined storage, it connects. So these cables by themselves do not connect to things that don't belong to refined storage. If that makes any sense. If you need me to clarify that, let me know. But here we have these guys, the importers and exporters. And these guys, oops, these guys will hook up just fine. Look at that. So it's hooked into my box here. Now I don't want it importing everything, which is probably going to do while I take a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling out stacks of things I want it to actually import and export. Make sure I don't get any repeats. A lot of these metals all look alike because they're dull and gray. Get a piece of lead. Okay, I got one. So I'm going to come in here and you can see it's got basically a built-in filter. There we go. Built-in filter. And that's what I'm going to tell it I want it to import. Now you can see there's also this little toggle here. You can set it to fluids too, so you can import stuff from your smelter even, which is what I like doing. And then you can also switch it between whitelist and blacklist mode, like you could an item filter. So we're going to go ahead and put all this back. Then we're going to head over to our nice new computer. Take a look what's going on. So we're probably going to have a little bit of these ore pieces in here, simply because I didn't get it hooked in fast enough. No, just a little bit of ore, but that's fine. And you can see it's starting to pull in our resources. It's going pretty darn slow, but there's another really cool feature that can be used with these importers and exporters, and that is modifications to increase the speed. So now I'm going to go back to refined storage. Oops. And I'm going to take a look down here at these guys. So you'll see there's various types of upgrades for various purposes, but the one we're going to look at here is our speed upgrade. So you'll recognize this is the solderer, and you'll see there's a new little thing for us to craft here. This is a blank upgrade, so that requires an improved processor, quartz enriched iron, and some glass, and we can make a few of these. And then we come back and take a look again. And we need some sugar, and we need some redstone. Now the really cool thing is the solderer itself is very, very slow. But you can make the speed upgrades for the solderer too, and it'll work way faster. It is very, very nice sped up. So let's go on back, and I'll grab a few things and put it in the solderer over here. So let's get some some upgrades. Thought I had some blank ones. Evidently I don't. So let's just make a few. Alright. Let's see, this is kind of a pain because they don't stack, so I'm going to get rid of that for now. So let's make 4. And we need some sugar. Hopefully you have a farm at this point. And let's go ahead and grab some redstone. So let's come on over here to our solderer, and we're going to take the speed upgrades out and just kind of show you the difference. Now you can just kind of shift click this stuff. As you can see, it's going really, really slow right now, making this upgrade. So we're going to take that, and we're going to pop the 4 upgrades back in and let you see what the speed difference is. Boom! Much faster. Look at that. Good stuff. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and head back to town. So we have 4 speed upgrades to show you the difference on these transfer cables, the importer and the exporter. So you saw how slow things were coming in, so we're going to put these on here. And we're going to come back over and we're going to check it out. See how fast stuff is transferring. Oh, looks like everything already transferred. You know what we'll do? We'll just go ahead and pull some of the stuff out, throw it back in the box. Oops. And then you can see just how fast it transfers. So if you're producing lots and lots of stuff very quickly, you're going to want to think about the speed upgrades. Basically, when you start, you saw how fast it cleared out that box. You really aren't going to need to worry about it to start with, but later on, you're going to want them. So you can see that is a huge difference speed-wise, how fast it's moving everything in here. Look at that. That's good stuff. All right. So let's talk about a couple more things here. So we have our exporter, and what you can do with that is some kind of interesting things. Say you have like another project and you need to move some materials around. One of the cool tricks I found is I grab a crate here and I place it, say about, I don't know, right about here. And I figure out what material I need. We're going to use, we'll use these cooked mutton because I do have something I can do with these later on. And I'm going to grab my exporter. I'm going to attach it. Oops, it went the wrong way. Oh boy. That all-in-one tool, I tell you, it's always screwing me over. Alright, so let's go ahead and fix the dirt. There we go. We're going to fix that, and we're going to tell it export lamb chops. And you can see it's going to put lamb chops in here. Now again, I'm going to show you the difference speed-wise. I'm going to steal these speeds things here. And I'm going to put them in here. And we're going to watch how fast this box is filling up. Look at that. Now, you're saying, okay, but if I move that box, everything's going to be out of the box. Oh, you should be using these guys, crate savers. So you can make one of these guys. You can put it in your box. We're going to go ahead and stop that. And then you can pick up your box. Darn it. Ah! You can pick up your box and place it back down. And boop. What do you know? All the lamb chops are still in it. So, pretty cool stuff. Now, you can definitely do this with multiple network devices, as I showed you. So you can have multiple areas where you're importing items, but you can also use it for a couple other things too. So let's go ahead and head to the main base. Take a look. You can see here I have lots and lots of these guys in the floor. And again, all I have to do is be connected here. Now let me show you one little thing that I found that I like a lot better with my smelter, because you can see this is quite a large smelter here, but I was still finding I didn't have enough room for projects. I tried this system here, hooking fluid tanks to drains and putting it into the casting basin, but you can see here if I didn't have quite enough, it left all these basins partially full, and it just kind of annoyed me. So what I realized I could do was pump anything that I smelt in here out and put it into my computer. Now, you need some fluid disks. I recommend that you take and you make a separate disk drive for fluids, because you can see the numbers look much higher, but if I have a fluid disk in with these regular disks here, you can see it says 512, but if I put this in here, it's going to say 600 or 960,000, and that gets confusing because you're thinking, ooh, I have lots of space for items, but no, that's mostly fluid space. So what you're going to need to access your fluid is a fluid grid. And yes, as you imagine, it needs a regular grid and then a couple other things, a bucket and advanced processor. Now I have one down already, but when I click on it, you can see all the stuff I have stored in here. So this is the stuff that I use for, making the Tinkerer's tools. So we're going to come over here and we're going to take a look at a little something I've done with the Tinkerer's tools. Now you can see I've got levers here, I've got switches, exporters, hooked straight into this basin. Let me go ahead and grab this out of this casting basin and show you what I've got down here. So I've got my exporter set to fluid, and then I selected the type that I want to come into the basin. And at the moment it's Manny Lauren, I believe. But if I go ahead and I pull up my buckets, I was smart enough to keep a bucket of every liquid so I can switch that in and out. If you want some blank upgrades, they're easy to make too because you can just switch to that material. But you got your buckets. We'll show you here. Let's grab a bucket of molten night slime. And I'm going to come over here to this exporter. It's set to fluid already. And I'm going to right click. It doesn't consume the bucket, but it tells it that's what we're going to export. And I flip the switch. And look at that. It just made me what I wanted. And then I turn it off. Now let me show you what else I'm doing with the fluids down here too, because I had a project that required a lot of the glass that you made from the smelter. And it's a pain in the butt. Just gonna pop those back in there. It's a pain in the butt to make. So what I did was I set up a system here, which I can tell everything that I want it to put sand in here. So I can tell my exporter, hey, move sand in. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go ahead and grab some sand. So we're going to put sand in here. And then I'm going to go downstairs because that's where my relay switch is. Hang on one second. So that's another item I need to talk about too, is the relay. So I don't want all of my sand being put into the smelter, but I do want a good bit of it going in there so that I can make myself some glass. So I have this box here. It's called a relay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the relay and see what that needs. And this is also a part of refined storage. So relay. Here we go. So it needs a machine casing, a redstone torch, and a cable. And then it has the ability to have, you can see here I got my pipes coming into it, and then my pipes going out, and I can flip a switch, and that switch is going to indicate, hey, I want you to actually start moving these items. So you can see here, when I click on this, it's filling up my smeltery. But if I want it to stop and not fill it anymore, I just flip my switch off. Now over here, I have a bunch of casting basins set up. And these casting basins are hooked with exporters at the bottom, exporting glass, and then importers at the top, importing any item. So I haven't set anything specific here, so it's going to import any item that's in that casting basin. When I flip this switch, this is a relay here. You can see it starts filling it up with liquid glass, molten glass, and then it takes the clear glass out as soon as it's done. But if I don't want to use up all my molten glass for whatever reason, I can turn this back off. So this is a nice system if you need clear glass for anything. So let's go ahead and head out of here, and I'm going to show you one of the other practical applications that I have for it. So I am exceptionally lazy. I like to automate everything. And that's the nice thing about Refined Storage is it lets you automate a lot of stuff. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to head over to my base here, and I'm going to show you, now that you know what they are, you can see what I got up here. I got a bunch of relays hooked up everywhere, because that means I can turn on and off my system pretty easily. So you can see this is off at the moment. The relays are hooked up. Exporter here, and I just tell it, hey, this is the material I want you to export. I'm going to pull off sand because I don't need that anymore. I'm going to pull off iron because I don't need that either. And I'm going to show you on the back side here, I have importers hooked up. So you can see I actually ran cables all the way along here and then hooked it into something that was touching this computer. Now you can put it directly onto your controller, or you can just hook it into something else. It should still work as long as this big mess here is all your refined storage system. So I can flip these on though if I want to make a material. Let's say I do actually want to make some glass. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some sand. Oh, I already have some sand. I'm going to put it right here on my exporter. You can see it's pulling out these items. Why is it not pulling in sand? Ah, because it's the other storage system. Right. Well, let's go ahead and put the sand in here. I have two main computers I use. So let's see. Okay, sand was the poor choice since... no. Where is the sand? Evidently the sand did not get in there. Let's see. We'll do something a little different. We'll grab some... No, don't have any uncooked pork chops. Let's see. How about something good I can bake here to show you, because this is not helpful. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just make some extra sand real quick. I have a system hooked up back in the main base I'm going to show you in a few too, to move stuff between computers, since we have a few. There we go. Now, need to grab more sand. Just grab it on out. There we go. Make sure it's on my exporter. And you can see it's making glass for me. It's filling it. And it's popping it on out. There we are. So, I have powered furnaces hooked up. Oh, see, this one was the one that had it. There we go. I'll just pull that off. Power furnaces hooked up. I have alloy smelters hooked up. I have sag mills hooked up. A double crusher. A slice and splice. A soul binder. And a vat. And all these things are hooked up via relays, so I can turn them off or on as I want to, and have them auto construct whatever I want them to make for me. So let's go ahead and turn this one off. There we go. Now it's going to keep smelting because I didn't turn off the powered furnace, but it's not going to keep pulling items in or out. So let's go ahead and we're going to move back to the main base. And I'm going to touch on a couple of other items that can be found in the refined storage, and that is the constructor and the deconstructor. So now, if any of you have played around with Botania at all, you'll know that there's this thing here called a pure daisy, and that's something that's very critical for Botania, because you're going to need living wood and living stone to do a lot of the Botania stuff. But in order to do that, you need to put some blocks around the living daisy, or excuse me, pure daisy, and then wait for it to turn them into what you need. But with this here, I have it set up to take stone and some wood. I think in a few places I have wood. And wait until they turn into living stone and living wood, and deconstruct them and put them back into my storage system. The reason I dropped that block is because I don't have any sand, or excuse me, stone or wood in that computer, and I think it's just a little bit easier if I go ahead and drop this so we can see what happens. It's going to take a minute here. Let me go ahead and put some of these items away while we wait. Any day now, Pure Daisy. Any day now. There we go. And boom, you saw it disappeared because the deconstructor destroyed it and picked it up. And this is useful for many different things too, because you can see over here, let me turn on my night vision, I have a wither killer. And right here I have constructors set up to actually make my withers for me. And I've got a good old relay over here hooked up so I can turn it on and off. But when I turn it on, you can see what it's doing. It's making withers, dropping them on in. You can't actually see the blocks being formed because it's happening so quickly, but it is definitely working. And then my good old wither killer is, need to back up, it's hurting me a bit, there we go, is killing them off for me, and we're good. That is a fantastic system. Now you can use the constructor in a slightly different way. I'm going to head on over to my other base and show you an interesting use I found for the constructor. So the way we had the constructor set up was the default way, and that is down here. It's drop block, or excuse me, right here, drop blocks instead of placing, and it's set to no. Now if we set it to yes, instead of constructing a block and placing a piece of stone down, or the soul sand and the wither skulls, you can set it to do this, just drop the block. So if any of you have worked with blood magic, you'll know that you need to fill these guys here with demon wills. So I set up an automated demon will collector, and then I can just stand in my dropper right here and fill my gem up. So very, very nice way to do this. Excuse me, one second. Oh my goodness, allergies. I apologize for all the coughing. So, now you'll notice there's these little things in my inventory here that I keep using, and I'm actually accessing the computer. There is no crafting grid on them, but if I need an item, I can access it very quickly. And I'm going to show you now how to get that set up. So, if we go back into Refined Storage again, keep doing that, you'll see here we've got these wireless grids. And you can see, of course, they require a grid and tons of enriched iron. But once you get these guys set up, let me go ahead and make one. I'm missing a grid, of course. Let's go ahead and make a grid. And then we'll go ahead and make one of these guys. You can see it's a little bit different from the ones I got here because it doesn't have a blue screen on it. That means it's not actually connected to any of my computers. So all I have to do is head on over to where the controller is for my computer. So I'm going to go back to my main town because I make a few of these as extras for anybody that wants them. And then you shift right click on the controller and you have this guy set to work. Now when I right click on it with this computer. Now what I like to do, because I have multiple computers, I think there's 3 main systems in our game, I like to take them over to the anvil and name them. So it's just like with the network cards. Come in here and put main computer. Boom. There we go. So this is hooked into our main computer. I'm just going to throw that in my box of goodies for people. Now, mine are working just fine right now, but that's because I have this here. Now this is a wireless transmitter. This is absolutely essential to being able to use these remote systems. You probably saw a few times it said nothing in range. Let's see how far I have to get. No wireless transmitter in range. So we're going to have to make a wireless transmitter. So let's go ahead, pull that up, clear this out here. So here's our wireless transmitter. Now if we hover over it, it says it needs to be placed on a cable. That's why I have the weird thing I have up top. So it needs machine casing, ender pearl, advanced processor, and 6 quartz enriched iron to make it. And I like to place it like it's a big antenna. So I put the cable down, and I put the transmitter there, and then the base distance is only 16 blocks on that. So I always make range upgrades for it. So you can see right here, more of these blank upgrades, some redstone and some ender pearls in your solderer will make you a ranged upgrade. Now, there's also something I forgot to mention that's very cool too. And that is, let me show you this one right here. You see what this says? Dimension 1. So I'm actually using refined storage in another dimension. And how I'm able to do that is I have a different upgrade, and that is the interdimensional upgrade. So here we are, you can see. And I hooked it up just like I would anything else, but I had to make sure there was an interdimensional upgrade in it. So let's go ahead and head to where this upgrade is. There we are. So you can see this one I have hooked in. It's not in an ideal spot. I was experimenting. This is a terrible spot for it. It needs to be fixed. But if I go ahead and take out a few blocks, you can kind of see. I don't want to Enderman in here. What I've got going on. You can see in here I've got one of my transmitters. I've got a crafting grid. And I've got my network receiver. And that means I can access this anywhere. Now to show you that this only works with this one, because that's the only one I have hooked up, here's my computer, my personal computer. I don't have one over here, so I don't have range for it. But this one, exact same. Exact same as back home. So that's nice. Now if you spend a lot of time in the beneath, or if you go over to hell, that sounds terrible, but I think I'm not proficient in Minecraft, but I do believe that it is actually called hell. Or nether. Then you can set up your computer to be accessible from various locations. Now, the further away you are, the higher the cost energy-wise. You can see I actually have this here, a flux point, because this has a very high amount of power that's coming through. Originally I had my mid-range cables hooked directly from the reactor into the computer. However, that was not enough power to keep it going, so I upgraded to the green. The green was not enough to keep it going because I had so many so far away. So I upgraded to the flux point. So that's providing enough power to make sure that my computer doesn't go down and that all of these are powered even in other dimensions. But yes, so the having one of these in another dimension, I believe, is a flat fee. I don't remember what that fee is. I want to say it's about 10,000, but I don't think it's quite that much. But it's expensive power-wise to keep it up in another dimension. But I think I've covered everything in refined storage. I just want to mention here, you can see I have multiple disk drives hooked in, and that adds to my overall storage. So don't panic if you go through the 512,000, which you will. As you can see over here, I have 4 regular drives and 1 fluid drive full of disks, and these are all almost full. You can tell that disks are full because they're red. Blue means there's not a lot of items on them, and orange means getting kind of full. But this is a very, very full system. But yeah, this is an excellent system. Refined storage is pretty much the only thing I really want to use, in all honesty, because it makes everything so much easier, and it's all in one central location, and it's fantastic for automation. But anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you guys back next time.